Hello. Back again for another great episode of the Grown and Greek podcast. And I'm excited for this conversation. She's a longtime friend and just such a wonderful person. So I cannot wait for you guys to meet her. But let's get through these housekeeping notes. Of course, I want to make sure that you like, subscribe, share, and comment. Download the episodes of the podcast because that's very, very important for us to keep spreading the word about the wonderful things and people of the Divine Nine. You can find us on podcast platforms and you can watch full episodes on YouTube. And please, if you know someone of the Divine Nine whose story is just as dynamic as this episode's guest, please reach out to me in the DM on IG at GrownAndGreekPodcast, and make sure you follow us as well. So let's dive right on in. She is an attorney, CEO of Travis Law LLC, and a powerful advocate with a lot of passion that goes far beyond the courtroom, which I'm excited to dive into. Now, while she is in probate and family law, she is the driving force in environmental conservation. She's been serving in leadership roles with the Sierra Club, the Cahaba River Society, and multiple civic boards to protect Alabama's land, water, and communities. Now, her work bridges justice, policy, preservation, and she is just a delight to know and be around and making impact and sharing her voice with the world. And so I'm so excited to introduce my sister, who is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Joi Travis. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Nice to be
That was all
here.
right.
That was
That was all
great.
right.
That was great. I sounded great.
I had to kind of put my feelings into perspective in words because I just think so much of you and love you so much.
I
So
appreciate
yeah,
that.
I'm
Likewise.
I'm I'm excited for folks to know more about you. Every time your name is Joy. I call you joyful
Yeah.
because you are definitely that in a bag of chips. But
Thank
I
you.
want to know I don't even know, Joy. Like I seem like I've felt like I've known you forever in the day, but
Yeah.
I don't even remember where or how we met. And at this point, it's like, yeah, that's my joyful. That's my joyful. But you are highly respected, and you've built a career, and you're respected with the work that you do with probate and family law. And it's a lot of work that deals with emotional chapters in people's lives, and you have to have a lot of sympathy and empathy and be exact in everything when it comes to that. Why did you choose those two areas?
Well, I chose those areas because I felt like those were areas that were more personal for me.
Okay.
When you're talking about probate law, you're talking about wills and estates, and you're talking about heirship property, and you're talking about different things that families have to go through when traumatic events occur, such as incapacitation or death. And then with family law, I saw and could relate to things that would occur within families. Children being taken away or persons passing away and having to go live with someone else. And so just knowing that those things were happening in my communities of people that look like me, and knowing that I could be an advocate to make sure that that transition was as fluid as possible. And there was someone advocating for people on each side of those lines. So that's kind of where it came from. I've always had a heart to give. I've always just been a community servant. I always wanted to give and, just do what I can to just make the world better. So it just made sense to go into those types of fields where I can really have some influence in impacting people's lives when some of the most traumatic events are occurring.
And you are a graduate of Alabama State University.
I am. I am a
You are a
proud.
Hornet.
Yes, I am a proud graduate of Alabama
You
State
you are.
University. I am very proud of my school. I'm very excited about everything that Alabama State has to offer, what it continues to do as it grows. I am very active with my Alumni
Mhm.
Association. My mother is a graduate of Alabama State University. She is very active as well as her Alumni Association. So
Okay.
we are very active alumni. We support our school, our president, President Ross. And so it's just been a wonderful experience. I started at Alabama State back in 2001. And it is just so heartwarming and full circle to, be able to go there as a student. I actually worked in admissions for a short time as a district recruiter.
Did
And
you?
I
Okay.
did. I did. I was a recruiter for Alabama State, and it was at a time when I had just recently graduated from Alabama State, and I recently pledged Delta, and it was exciting. It was really exciting to be able to travel around and encourage students and help students to facilitate the process for them to go from high school to Alabama State,
Mhm.
especially being someone that is not originally from Alabama. I'm from Ohio, so it was really cool to be able to make those connections and work with the interested parties like Alumni. Um, but I've always been a big supporter of Alabama State. I always attended Turkey Day Classic and Magic City Classic. So I'm just so excited about everything about Alabama State. It's always a great day to be a Hornet. So
So this is gonna, I gotta dive into this because I was gonna go a different direction with the conversation, but this is like intriguing because first of all, I did not know that your mother was a graduate of Alabama State. We have so much more in common now, like we're talking, than I even knew. So my mother is too. My
oh
mother graduated
wow.
from Alabama State. Yep. So we have that in common. We
Yes.
have our Ohio connection in common.
Yes.
We have D9 in common.
Yes.
And the other thing is I worked as a recruiter, admissions counselor at Montevallo.
Oh
So as
wow.
soon as I graduated, I started like 3 days after I graduated from Montevallo,
Oh
like
wow.
just like you did. So
I probably talked to you at some
that's
point.
what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
trying to go back. I'm like, yeah, did we know each other way back when and didn't realize it? But
Yeah.
yeah, and that was like this around the same time.
Yeah, and there's a
God, Joy, I
recruiter
bet we
that was at
did.
Montevallo. There was a recruiter that was at Montevallo. I actually saw him recently at the classic.
Monte, he's an
Yes,
alpha. Yeah.
absolutely. So he
So
was
Monte
someone.
came after me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember him on
Yay.
the trail, the recruiting trail. So it was a
Yeah.
great experience. I was young. It was, I had
Yeah,
some
girl.
challenges recruiting
Yeah,
though.
girl.
I think I was 23 or 24. So a lot of places, I would go and they would like hit me with this underage fee for renting a car. Right. Cause it was like under 25, you get like this. So there were some challenges, but it was great. It was a wonderful experience.
Hmm. It what I appreciate about those times is, just like you said, like you got a chance to immediately
Right.
give back to folks that look like you, and you were fresh, like with the experience, right? So
Right.
it was real. So you
Right.
weren't going into a situation where we're talking to students about the opportunity to
Right.
to uh go towards higher education, where you didn't really know what you were talking. You weren't far enough removed from it to have a difference of opinion. And so what's been so rewarding for me, like looking back at those times, is like some of the students that because I was responsible at the time for like a scholarship program. And so some of the students that came through that scholarship program are beasting it
Mhm.
in the marketplace and stuff now. And it's like, man, just you don't know why times and paths meet, but to see the fruits of labor in those relationships are just, that's the most rewarding thing ever. And it humbles you, because it's like, man, I was chosen to do something like this, to plant seeds that grew into like this whole thing. So I had no idea that you did that. That is
Yes.
amazing.
Yes, it was a good opportunity. I really enjoyed recruiting. It
Yeah.
was a lot. It was a lot. The only reason I stopped is because I wanted to just get more into my field, or what I thought would be my field, right, in my
Yeah.
career. But it was a wonderful opportunity. Even now, the admissions director, someone I worked with, Freddie Williams, is over admissions and recruitment now, and yeah.
Freddie, the Freddie I know.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Yeah, so we
What?
worked together, and it
Okay.
was a great experience. Like I said,
Oh, wow.
it was good, and so one of the things I take from that, and something I'm always trying to make sure. It doesn't matter your age, like,
Right.
relationships matter, connections
Yeah.
matter, right? I remember being a freshman and a sophomore at Alabama State and helping President Ross with his campaign. He was running for, I
Yeah.
think, state senate at the time, or other elected
Wow,
officials
Joy.
that have just kind of evolved to, these giants, and they were giants
Mhm.
then, but just to be able to stand on those shoulders of giants, and be able to see that, it's remarkable. So I love my university. I enjoy the opportunities and just the connections I've made and just the friends.
Mhm. So did you have a choice of going to another school, or was it a state
So,
where you were just gonna go no matter what because of your mom?
growing up, I traveled to Alabama at least 3 to 4 times a year, going to
Mhm.
classics and Mardi Gras. And so, when we're teenagers, we don't know what we're talking about. I said I was going to go to Tuskegee because I wanted to make my mother mad. And I got scholarship to Tuskegee, and it was like Tuskegee, FAMU, and St. John. So we went to FAM. I didn't like that on a visit, and I went to Tuskegee, and it was like, okay, there is no corner store. There is no where's the 24-hour gas station? Where's the airport? It was a culture shock coming from Cleveland,
Mhm.
Ohio. So, that kind of went out the water. But when I went to Alabama State to visit, and I had been on campus before, but visiting as a senior, it just made sense. It just felt like home. So probably right up until like my senior year, I was kind of trying to go somewhere else, but it made sense and it worked out. And I'm so glad I did, just to be able to be in that space with legends. I know one of the first persons I met at the school was Dr. T. Clifford Bibb. And
Mhm.
Dr. Bibb also taught my mom, and he
Oh,
really encouraged me
man.
to take honors classes and get in the honors program. I remember Keith Edwards was there and he was over student activities. And so I think he, went to school with my mom, and so it was great to run into different people who had that experience with
Mhm.
engaging with my mother while she was there, and then engaging with me as well. So it's definitely been life changing. I can definitely appreciate all of it.
And you that lineage is really strong and extends generations, and that's the environment that you get going to an HBCU. And
It
you've
is.
talked about your and I've seen it firsthand, just how deep and committed and your love is for being an alumni member of the ASU Jefferson. What is it? I don't want to say it
No,
wrong.
Jefferson Shelby Alumni
Jefferson
Association.
Chevy Alumni. That's right.
Yeah.
So being a member of that, why is that so important? And why are you such an advocate for it? And what would how would you encourage other people? And they don't have to be, alumni of HBCUs. They can
No.
still contribute in some kind of
Right.
way. But how would you advocate for that in the work that you guys do?
As a recruiter, and even now, I always advocate that if you went to the university, if you had a child or a sibling that went to the university, if you ever went to any events, you can support the Alumni Association. The Alumni Association, it creates community. Everyone needs a community to be able to support them, and they can support other people. So I love the community that my Alumni Association creates. We have events, we raise money, we do great things, but we also support one another, and I appreciate that so much. But the Alumni Association also helps you to keep up with what's going on at the university. Things like updates and opportunities to support the school. It's like a direct connection. It's like a direct vessel to the university to be able to understand and contribute and pay it forward. And then, supporting anything that's affiliated with the school, it just kind of helps to keep that, the excitement and the enthusiasm, as well as just the marketing for the school.
Mhm.
It's great to wear Alabama State University clothing. It's great to wear ASU gear. It's great to go to events, but it's also, even better to encourage people to support the school, to come to our meetings, to lead the school, lead the Alumni Association for different activities and events. For an example, my mother this weekend is really diligent about helping with Connection Day. At Connection Day, it's a time when high school seniors can come to university and go to a game, football game, also learn about financial aid and the different things that the school has to offer. But it's because of alumni in different areas across the country that help drive those programs to get the students from those different places across the country to go to Connection Day, to have that first connection with the school or that
Mhm.
first introduction or the seal the deal. It's the alumni associations that kind of bridge those gaps. And we need alumni of all ages and all backgrounds and from all different places to be able to help bridge the gaps. Because as you know, HBCUs, it's a diversity of Black and brown people
Mhm.
from different backgrounds and socioeconomic backgrounds and places. So, our alumni is a driving force of just keeping the schools relevant and sustainable.
Mhm. Y'all do a good job. Like, I mean, and so many people that represent ASU are, I'm blessed to have a mom and then her friends that became aunts and uncles and stuff to us, but also, friends now who are just doing things that will blow your mind, in
Right.
the marketplace and stuff. And so, I'm grateful to know that you came from such a good soil, good ground, as they say. Now you have your own law firm, and you've been, practicing and everything for a while. What was that process like, and why did you decide to step on out there and put your name in lights and all of that stuff?
My undergraduate degree is in political science, and like I said, I love campaigns and politics, and I still do. I like policy.
Hmm.
So what I learned by volunteering and working on a lot of different campaigns is that and just in life, organizing campaigns and just doing different things is that if you don't have the credentialing behind your name, people are not going to take you serious. You're not going to be able to have a lot of influence. You can't advance priorities. And so that makes a difference when you are trying to advocate for underprivileged people or people that don't have a voice. And so I decided to go to law school after I worked in state government for some time. I decided to go to law school, and I really just want to do more policy work. So I
Hmm.
didn't really have an interest in practicing probate, but it just kind of came along with the territory. But with that, I really wanted to just dig deep into some legislation, some policy work, maybe some lobbying. But I went to law school, and you just really learn about how much your talents and skills are needed
Mm.
when you're talking about people that look like us that, have been done wrong. And so when you have a seat at the table, it just feel like it's my duty to be able to speak up where I can. And so practicing came from going to law school, taking the bar, and then coming out and just realizing that I wanted to continue to just be an advocate. And I was always an entrepreneur. I had a consulting firm before Travis Law, and I worked with some other entrepreneurs to do some of the business development. So it just made sense to come out and have my own law firm. And so Travis Law began, and the rest was history.
And you make appearances all the time on as a legal professional, and I see your moves, and you do a great job, but just always so pleasant, but absolutely brilliant, and so sharp, Joy, like so sharp. So
Thank you.
kudos to the work that you're doing now. Like, speaking of policy and all of that, something that I did not know is you've been working with like environmental preservation, advocacy, and doing things with water and rivers and all of that. And I was like, what? That's a layer I did not know about.
Yeah.
So we got to dive into that, right?
Yeah.
So, you have this unbelievable, brilliant mind, that I talked about, but your environmental work is just absolutely blowing my mind, and something that I'm interested in, um, too, because it's so important. When did you make that pivot? How did your background even influence that decision, and kind of, high level, tell us about the work that you've been doing. And I know you've been with the Sierra Club, and kind of explain what the Sierra Club is all about. And then we'll go into some more questions.
Yeah,
Like
not a
that.
problem. So the Sierra Club is one of the largest environmental justice organizations in the world, and
Mhm.
the theme for Sierra Club is explore, enjoy, and protect the great outdoors. And so I started with the Sierra Club in Alabama, probably about I think right when I became an attorney, I got active with um, some people with Sierra Club
Wow.
locally. And I started as a compliance officer for the state. And so from there, I kind of worked my way up as a volunteer leader, stay active with the Alabama Sierra Club. The Alabama Sierra Club is a chapter here. And then the local group is called the Cahaba Group. And so stay active with the chapter. I served as the vice chair and the chair for the Alabama Sierra Club and worked with a lot of different organizations just throughout the country, honestly. I can't even say just Alabama. But through that, worked with different issues because, as you know, Alabama from the north, there are different issues that look different than there are in the south. And
Oh
so
yeah.
the issues, they're very expansive, right?
Yeah.
But it's called Alabama the Beautiful for a reason, and we want to preserve and protect that. And so that was probably one of the that was a great opportunity just to be able to advocate for environmental injustice, because environmental injustice looks different to different people.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I saw, we have issues like what happens in Africa Town, where there is just environmental pollution that must be addressed, and there has to be some recourse, or you have issues like things that are happening in North Alabama, North Birmingham. So from across the country, there are different things, but also just in our state we have so many different issues. Data centers is an environmental concern
Mhm.
for some people that are in this space. But I started working with the Sierra Club, and just as a volunteer leader, worked my way up to the chair. I actually just stepped down last year as a chair, so now I work more closely with the Cahaba Group. It's been reformed, and it can vary. There are different things that we try to tackle and support. But whatever it is, there's always me sitting at the table making sure that I have a voice, because what I found in the Sierra Club is that most of the environmental injustice happens to people that look like me. But a lot of the advocates don't look like me.
Mm.
And so there's a disconnect, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes when you are trying to make sure that those voices are heard, and not just the voices, but exactly what needs to be said. And so
Mhm.
I've used the opportunity to have a seat at the table to make sure that I can advocate for everyone that's affected by environmental injustice. And on top of in addition to Sierra Club, I served on the board for the Cahaba River Society. Now they have since merged with the River Keepers, and so that is another organization now. And so it has just opened up a world to really understand some of the things that we need to pay more attention to, like climate migration, and just climate change issues, period. And so those are probably just some of the organizations the boards I sit on, but I try to support where I can. There's a lot of different organizations around here that do environmental work, GASP and Panic, and there's a lot of them. But I think half the battle is knowing who they are,
Mhm.
to know what the issues are, and just helping to spread the word.
How do you let me see how I want to phrase this. So just say if there is an environmental issue, and people are trying to figure out like where to start to get help or make something aware, or make people aware, would the Sierra Club be a place to contact to start? Or what resources, I guess, question really is, what resources are available for people to start that process? Because yeah, it's just unfortunate. You mentioned Africa Town, and then just the black belt, in the country, disproportionately affected by environmental issues. And people just they don't know what to do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's a lack of education, but then, obviously it's a lack of resources. But
Right.
speak to that. Like, where should people start? How would they begin a process, to reach someone like you that can advocate for, um, something to be done about it?
That's a heavy it's a heavy
Yeah,
comment, right?
yeah,
Because a lot of times, like you said, a lot of times we don't know what environmental injustice is. As a
yeah.
lawyer, I've gotten a lot of calls from people that say, "Hey, I think I have mold in my house," right? That's environmental. Okay.
Mm,
Also, when you're looking at things like hair relaxer litigation, right? That's environmental, right?
it
And so,
is.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because you're talking about chemicals. I mean, you're talking about,
Okay.
so a lot of the different things people don't really realize. And I started to kind of get into the mass tort space because a lot of it is environmental, right?
Hmm.
When you're talking about Flint not having water or
Hmm.
clean drinking water, that's environmental. So a lot of times, just starting there, sometimes people don't even know what they may be experiencing is something that is an environmental injustice, right? And
Hmm.
so everyone has the right to clean air, clean water. That's just a basic human right. And so if we start there, when you feel like something is being disturbed or distracted, your health, right? If
Hmm.
you're talking about something that you can't do a certain thing at a certain time, your enjoyment around your home, if there's some type of distraction caused by some type of environmental concern. Sometimes I try to break it down for younger people. I'm like, if you look in different neighborhoods, where do you see power lines, right?
Mm.
Where do you see train tracks, right? So if you kind of break it
Yeah,
down like that,
boy.
people, it kind
Okay.
of opens their eyes and say, okay, wait a minute. There are some differences in where we put different commercial projects and buildings, or, just, I mean, even cemeteries, right? So, I mean, it just
Hmm.
kind of goes, if you look around, what does my community look like as opposed to, my cousin's community or something
Hmm.
to that effect. Let just start there, right? And then there are organizations like GASP or the Sierra Club, or Panic, where you can ask those environmental professionals, or people that are in the world or in that space, hey, I think this might be something environmentally supported, right? What do you think? Because I've heard a lot of different concerns. Because even for me, I think, like, the prisons issue, that's environmental, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's so expansive when you look at it. But when you talk to those environmental professionals or organizers or people in that space, you have to ask the question first, right? These are the details, and everything matters. I know that the mayor is actually trying to do I think, something around sustainability, and that's the tag
Hmm.
phrase, sustainability, right? Just to be
Okay.
able to identify where those environmental injustices and concerns are, so that we can make sure it's sustainable for all, right? Because unfortunately, a lot in our communities, we don't have a lot of green spaces and different things to make sure that we're a sustainable community. So that's the push. And I think it just has to be the conversation in our alumni associations, in our Greek organizations, in our churches, in our homes, right? And then paying attention to how our bodies react and respond to what's around us.
Hmm.
If something is different in your home and you're sniffling, or you have some type of, sometimes it could be physical rashes and different things like that. So, it spans a wide gamut. We love Google. People go Google anything, which
Right.
is not a bad thing, but it's better to ask and get some clarity. And sometimes even when you go to the hospital, they'll tell you, this is based off something in the environment, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a huge net to cast, but there are people out there that are definitely willing to help answer questions and to give opinions on, resolutions for anything that could be an environmental injustice.
Have you, having that seat at the table that you mentioned, and you are just a proponent for it and making those moves, have you seen, like, your work really being um taken seriously, and folks really starting to pay attention and all? And if there's more work to be done, how, what can the community do to help you?
I have seen some fruits of my labor. I think one of the biggest concerns that I have in this space is that, and I have to be honest, Sierra Club was founded by a man named John Muir. John Muir was, he, he was a racist. Let's say that.
Okay.
Okay. And so there are some racial challenges in the environmental space, like I said, because
Mhm.
sometimes when people are making decisions about what happens in our communities, sometimes people are not at the table that look like those people that live in the communities. And so one of the things that I have tried to do is just make sure that we're bridging communication across all different organizations, across all platforms. And I have seen more engagement of that since I have started with the Sierra Club, at least in Alabama.
Mhm.
And so that is something that I hope that will continue. But I think sometimes when we just have a seat at the table to make people think about everyone and not just some of us, that is a huge step in the right direction.
Mhm.
So I think that, yes, I have seen some progress. There is still a lot more work to be done. What we can do is we can really take our communities and our environment more serious, right?
Mhm.
I drive around with a little garbage picker and a trash bag in the back of my trunk
Okay.
because it's my community. I remember I was somewhere and I saw a lot of trash, and so I just happened to be parked by it. So I just started picking the stuff up, and a lady just looked at me like, "Thank you so much for doing that."
Mm.
And I said, "You're welcome, but anyone can do that."
Mhm.
I mean, just something as small as just picking up trash can make a difference in, what happens with our environment. A lot of things we don't have control over. But
Mhm.
simple things, like conservation of energy. So we're talking about just lights in your home and water, and, gas. So there are just small things that everybody can do. But I think to start, maybe just looking at what some of the small things are and maybe just talking to people about that in our groups, in our sororities, in our fraternities, right? How can you help conserve energy? What can you do? Recycling, right? It's one of the smallest things that can just
Mhm.
really help in any community. And just the education of what your options are. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, even just educating people on these organizations and what people are doing in these spaces. Because globally, there's some environmental injustice that, that's happening to people that look like us, like in Brazil, and it's just
Mm.
like we're so privileged, we are
Mhm.
so we just don't understand some of the freedoms that we have and appreciate, I believe. But yeah, I think the
Like in the United States.
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think there definitely just has to be an emphasis of just starting the communication, right? And at your churches, what's everybody needs community service. Everybody can give back, just a cleanup, a basic cleanup. That's not hard. Or just giving people on tips on how to recycle. How do
Mhm.
you recycle? Where do you get the bins from? Where do you drop them off? So there are just little things that can be done and just kind of help us all get to a cleaner, greener society.
Mhm. And like to go to another degree in that, keeping it, keeping everything um wrapped up tight and all. There are, people who are on the other side of it doing the work to try to take from the, and affect those natural resources and all of that stuff, which is a whole scary conversation, that I don't really know that people are aware, because we're so inundated with social media and the fascination and propaganda or whatever. And going back to your point, how you were saying that everybody loves Google and they love tech, and with this us, society and stuff trying to embrace AI, we're now seeing more news and um, advocacy and stuff for all these data centers, and how that's going to affect the environment and everything, and the potential issues that might arise. And then maybe there are some positives, we don't know yet, but at large, like what has your work shown that people should be aware of when it comes to um these data centers, because they are massive, just like prisons. They are massive,
Right.
so they're going to take from our environment. And so what should people be aware of in terms of that? And then also, how can we fight for justice and equity, as it relates to, how it's going to positively affect our communities.
So, a lot of this is, I think data centers are an entity that will take a lot to be
Mm-hmm.
able to function in these communities. And we're talking about a lot, you're talking about a lot of energy, electricity, um, just traffic, period. I think that it's going to be something that not necessarily will enhance a community. I don't
Mm.
think that data centers can drive up property values.
Okay.
Um, so when I think of data centers, that those are some of the things that I'm thinking about when you're putting them in communities that are already, I guess, struggling. Um, and the other thing is these data centers they will take a lot, like I said, but what will they give to the communities?
Mm.
I mean, I think that our opportunity to be able to get more information or to leverage planning for a fluid transition with data centers in our community comes from, lobbying and advocating with those that are building them and that are getting these ordinances passed through the city council to build them. It takes us knowing about them when the planning starts to really try to get some
Mm-hmm.
change. Because at this point, I mean, we just saw there was a vote to build one in Bessemer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to, when the ball's rolling and we're already kind of at the end of the hill, to try to push it back up. But we have to figure out a way to counteract some of what we might experience with these data centers. And I've not heard those conversations yet, and what that looks like. I don't know. Because I just do know that they are going to have some type of impact on community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know all of the positive, but I hope that we have a plan in place for different things, natural disasters, influx in traffic, just other environmental concerns. And then, like I said, property values. I don't know how aesthetically pleasing these data centers are really going to look, and the maintenance of them, and what that looks like. So I have questions. But like I said, we got to look at what's going on globally, also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because these data centers, there are people buying, you know, um, large parcels of property in Africa,
Yeah.
right? Building data centers,
Yeah.
right? So it's definitely not exclusive to here, but let's look at where they're building them in more isolated areas where they're buying this land to build these centers and then to come around and, put them closer to communities is, I think we got to go back to the framework and the intent of what these really were intended to be. Because I just, I hear jobs are coming, but how sustainable is that?
Right. And then, to think, like, I don't even know how many acres of land it's going to take up or whatever, the new plant that they just talked about. But for the size of it, and just to 300 jobs is great.
Right,
But you would think like it would be thousands,
right.
of jobs created, but it's not. So it's almost like, um I don't know, there's some disconnect or whatever there. So to me, it doesn't seem like you were saying it would have that much of an economic,
A positive
impact.
impact.
Yeah,
Right.
that's not positive at all. But you will take up all this land mass where people could have homes or something, you know what I mean? And so, that's something interesting that I try to pay attention to or whatever, and learn about and everything, because it's definitely going to directly affect, our generation, because we're living in it. And hey, who knows what's going to happen if anything's going to be here, next generation or whatever. So
Right.
it's like, um I'm glad that you are in the space to, make people aware, because I know that you do have a voice. And hey, man, I'd be looking over my shoulder if you walked in the room, because I know you coming in there with them slingers, to make
Yeah.
sure that people are, um make sure people hear and know
Right.
that you're there. And so, I appreciate that part and that work and stuff that you're doing. But, when it comes to, understanding like, how to bridge the gap, you said, having those conversations in churches and, within our sororities and, just community and things like that. What, I guess, what would like first steps and things like that, give some, I guess, high level ways to approach those conversations? Because, that's kind of like, hey, coming into a situation, hey, let's talk about the environment. Like, what?
Right.
We don't talk about
Right.
the environment. What are you talking about? Like, huh? So how
No.
do you introduce those, conversations that you are speaking of?
So that's valid. And what I always encourage people to do when I give those suggestions is I say, hey, call me, right? I'll
Okay.
come and talk to your group about some of the environmental injustice in this community, right? Or the ways that you can be connected to the movement or whatever the case is, right? So get someone that's fluent in that field, that speaks that language, that speaks to people about these issues to come and talk to your group, because it's easier for someone that kind of knows what's been happening and knows the
Mhm.
trends that can kind of give some background and then allow people to ask questions to get a better understanding for themselves and how that can apply to them. So I think that's the first thing. And then I think another thing that can be done is, making sure people understand, first of all, like, what does environmental injustice mean?
Yeah.
That's something that we don't use the term a lot, right? So even if it's just adding it to, most sororities might have a committee that might do something social or something in the community. So maybe incorporating some type of environmentally backed effort, whether it's a cleanup or whether it is, going somewhere to, I know with Sierra Club, we were going to kind of take samples of water across the different lakes. I'm sorry, different rivers throughout the
Mhm.
state, right? So just different projects that you can find that will get your groups to be more open to what's going on and have a practical, I guess, experience with dealing with environmental issues. I think another thing is sometimes just showing people images of environmental
Mm.
injustice, a clip or sharing an article about something that's happening close or far away, right? Because sometimes it's just out of sight, out of mind, and people might
Mhm.
not know just because they haven't heard. So maybe just if you hear about something, share it with someone and say, this is an environmental issue that, I wonder how we can help. Because that starts the conversation of the other person thinking, well, what can we do? Or how is this environmental? It starts with young people. So it's
Mhm.
really important too to make sure young people understand what's happening, when you're talking about things like, tornadoes and hurricanes, right? And you're talking about climate migration, like, well, what does that mean, right? But everyone's experienced it to a certain extent. If a tornado is coming, you're going to leave, you might come back to your home. We just had a hurricane in Jamaica, right?
Mhm.
So what can we do to support some of the environmental trauma that the persons in Jamaicans had to experience? So I think that there's definitely an opportunity for people to just have conversations with people in that space, just to kind of see, like, how do we start the conversations? Or, coming to speak. I know people ask me to come and speak sometimes about, wills and estates. I have no problem. Also, I've spoken to different, like, younger high school environmental groups, or different things like that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there to start the conversation.
Mhm.
And it's just about reaching out, because you just never know. Sometimes there are some expert conservationists in the group that you just never would have thought.
Like
They
you.
they yeah, they stay on top of what's going on because they
Right.
understand how important that is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, reading about your work, I was like, man, I did not know that part of you, and I'm so excited to know that you are, because, it's needed, and no better person to be in that space than you, member of DST.
Yes. The
Yes,
Beta
ma'am.
Eta chapter, none greater. Absolutely.
You got to go back to the yard real quick and tell me about tell me about DST and your love, and you are one that anytime any Deltas, I'm like, yeah, joyful. Joyful is it. She
Yes.
joyful is one to know. But yeah, you are a beloved friend of Delta to me, and you just been so great. But yeah,
Thank you.
please just
So
expound on DST for me.
Delta. Yeah, I know I wanted to be a Delta from a young age. Young, all in Cleveland, the judges and everybody was a Delta. It was like my mom was just like, whatever. I did Delta debutante in high school. My mom was like, I'm not paying for that. So I raised my money, bought my dress, got my ads, debutante. I was like, I'm gonna be a Delta. So I did debutante senior year. Got to Alabama State and they had just had a line cross, I think, in the spring of 2001 when I got there. Just gotten back on the yard. And when I got there, I got very active with SGA. I was the SGA secretary. I did Phi Beta Lambda. I also became a member of the Order of Eastern Star while I was there.
Did you?
Um,
Okay.
I did orientation guys, student orientation services. At a black school, you played everything at a black school. You
Yeah.
played your gospel choir, golf team,
Right.
everything. The football team. It was a great experience though. But I joined a lot of organizations. And Delta was one that I am so proud of. I crossed in the spring of 2005. My line was 33 Vivacious Vessels. I was number 27.
Woo.
Joi Travis, and the chapter is the Beta Eta chapter, which is at Alabama State University. Um, Big shout out to my line and my big sister Ashley. But Delta was a wonderful experience. It's a journey for everyone. It
Hmm.
took some challenges to get over some humps, but we got there. And straight out of undergrad, I did go to the Montgomery Alumni chapter and was very active. I've always been active with social action.
Hmm.
That's my passion. So worked with the Montgomery Alumni chapter, and then I worked with the Columbus, Ohio Alumni chapter, and now here
Okay.
I am part of the Birmingham alumni chapter. But the Beta Eta chapter just has always been phenomenal, always been step show winners, National
Hmm.
Collegiate Sorority of the Year. Just always pride ourselves off greatness. And, we have had, I hate to say that wrong, but 2 or 3 national presidents to come out of the Beta Eta chapter. As you know, it's Gwendolyn Boyd is a Beta
Okay.
Eta soror. So,
Okay.
yeah, and it was exciting. She was actually the president of Alabama State University at one time. So, the Beta Eta chapter is definitely, just a force to be reckoned with. I've enjoyed that experience, and I love Delta. It's
Hmm.
been eye opening to just understand what a sisterhood should look like and what it should mean, professionally and socially and
Hmm.
financially and all of that. So I just enjoy the time with Delta.
Well, I can say that like you said, the sisterhood with you, and I know some other members of your chapter actually.
Mm-hmm.
It extends beyond our colors.
Yes.
So I so appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you do. I just appreciate you being just such a beautiful person, and
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy that hopefully others will see that too and
Yeah.
understand why joyful I say Travis is such a person to know in the D9. And thank you so much for coming on the um the podcast and talking
You're
a little bit
welcome.
about you. And
You're welcome. You know what? I thought about it too. I remember, I think when I first met you, I moved from Columbus.
yeah.
And you and Russ were talking about recess
Uh-huh.
or something like that. And I kept
Yes,
saying, or
something.
something. And I kept saying, I said, yeah, I know the people. I used to work with them. I kept saying, I used to work with the people that did it in Columbus. And I'll never forget. I saw Russ again. And he was like, They said they knew you. I said, I told you I used to work with the people in Avery and Columbus.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would never forget that because Russ was just like, they said they knew. I told you I knew them, Russ.
Yes.
So it's just funny though, the connections, not just in the D9, but just in the entertainment world. That's the other thing a lot of
Yes.
people don't know about me. I used to work in entertainment a little bit. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you and always creating a platform where we can express ourselves, because I think it's super cool that you're a DJ. All of my close friends are AKAs. So we've always just had a great connection. And I just appreciate the opportunity to come here and just the love every time I see you, every time I don't see you, I'll text you some hearts. But
Mhm.
just continue to do what you're doing, because you are definitely just making an impact. For just all Black sisters. So I appreciate you so much.
And hey, we gonna rock on with this now.
Yes.
We gonna rock on with it. But
Yes.
I thank you so much. That means a lot to me, and just to have your support, like for real, because it's indeed my love is real for you. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Tell everybody how they can reach you, and especially if
Yes.
they need to hit you up to come speak and do your thing and
Yes.
educate the peoples.
Yes, please let me come speak to you, to your group. Again, I am attorney Joi Travis. That's Joi, last name Travis. My law firm is called Travis Law. The website is travislawllc.com. Travislawllc.com. Our office number is 205-453-9331. 205-453-9331. You can reach us at info@travislawllc.com. You can find me on Facebook, Travis Law LLC. Connect with me on social media, Joi, Joi Travis. But just, see me out in the community. Come find me somewhere. But please let me come talk to your church, your group, or let's explore what we can do to fight this injustice.
And I tell you what, she's a passport buddy too. So if you're trying to get
Oh,
down and go somewhere,
yes.
hit Joy up. She gonna be ready to go.
Hit me up.
You ain't
I'll
got
be
to ask
ready.
you ain't got to ask your neighbor to the left or to the right. Just call Joy. She gonna ride.
Just come with me. I'm going to be ready.
I know. We're gonna make a trip soon.
Yes.
I have stuff, so I got to shift and shuffle, but we're gonna do that, like for real.
Yes.
Thank you so much, my beloved friend.
Thank you,
And
sister.
I love you
Of
dearly.
course.
Y'all make
Love you
sure
too.
that you share this episode. Of course, comment, like, share. We're on all podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, you can watch episodes on YouTube, and make sure you download. And if you know someone of the D9 who's doing phenomenal things, make sure you get at me in my DM at GrownAndGreekPodcast. Joi Travis, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You can support Grown and Greek by subscribing to the podcast, shopping our exclusive luxury accessory line, or purchasing books from the D9 Book Club by visiting our website at GrownAndGreekPodcast.com. Don't forget to like, comment, and share on social media at Grown and Greek Podcast. Thanks for watching.